Okay. So anyway, so welcome to the BEwell Zoom meeting. I say meeting and not a webinar or a seminar because BEwell is a safe and interactive space where our co-host today, me, the host, and you, the participants, come together to discuss topics that matter to our professions and well-being. Okay, my name is Gary Marcus Judge. I'm an entrepreneur and owner of a language school in Verona, Italy. It's called Green School. I also work as a business coach, helping my clients become international managers. They're mainly Italian clients who want to become international. So I help them by improving their communication skills, supporting them in their personal and professional growth. And I also help them to increase their global network, their contacts. Okay. So today's webinar is entitled Unleashing the Power of Sales. We have Malcolm Evans. A little bit about Malcolm, and then he can introduce himself. Malcolm Evans is often called a corporate detox coach. You can tell us a little bit about that later. Companies are made of teams. Teams are made of individuals. He says, I introduce simple stuff to leaders and teams like how to thrive when they invest mentally in their employees and customers. Then I introduce proven and validated tools to bring that mental investment to life. The results are always there when you can help individuals or teams clear blockages and navigate through tough times or dry spots to thrive. My motto, if it's difficult, you're doing it wrong. So thank you, Malcolm Evans, for being here. Perhaps you could just throw some light on what you do and how you can help us.
Well, thank you, Gary, and thank you, everybody, and thanks, Gary, for the opportunity to share some of the things that are very close to my heart, and have really solidified a lot of the things that I've done on my journey over the years. I'm based here in Atlanta, Georgia. Most people sort of discern that I'm not originally from here. Grew up in Wales, had two heroes. My dad and John Wayne, and they both sort of instilled in me, go west, young man. But apparently I wasn't very good at geography. I ended up in Africa. So spent some time there, and really, I did an engineering apprenticeship early in life, and that gave me the skills to be able to, get a free ticket around the world. And that was one of my other mottos, see the world and have somebody else pay for it. And that really instilled in me the need for solid skills. And over the years, I morphed out of being in engineering into my background's electrical, high power, but I went into electronics, and one day. A good friend of mine arrived, and he used to work for a car manufacturer, a German one, with a little propeller on the front of their car. And he wasn't driving one of the models. And I said, what's going on here? You're going to get told off by the boss or something. They issue you a car and you're not driving it. He said, no, I left them. And I said, well, where did this new car come from? And he said, oh, they gave me a job in sales. I said, really? They give you a job in sales and they give you a car? I want one. So that was my mission. I got out of engineering, and at that time I was in production management. I'd morphed into another career sort of line. I've had about 8 over the years, and I went off and got a job in sales, and rightly so. They gave me a new car, and that continued to build to my repertoire of skills. And out of something that's been the most impactful that I've done, and has given me the most sort of opportunity, and really allowed me to get back to that, seeing the world and having somebody else pay for it, was sales. Now, if you consider everything in sales is about the exchange of an idea, a point of view, a product or a service to fulfill a need. Now, this can be, this can be most rewarding, but often it can be most challenging for that person that is making a living in sales. I went into the career as a newbie. Really didn't know what I was getting into. All I knew was I had a car and I had a briefcase and a bunch of brochures. And then I started to be sort of coached by a couple of good sales managers and a couple of complete clowns. So
So give us a definition there, Malcolm, of good and clowns. Give us some examples so we.
well, the one of the coaches said to me, and I call him a coach. He's turned out to be my middle son's godfather as well. He was such an influence in my life, and he said, "Look, this whole thing about sales is really, pretty straightforward. There's only two things that you need to be cognizant of. The customer is going to listen and watch for everything you say and everything you do. So as long as you do what you say you're going to do, everything will be good." And one other chap said, and he said, look, sales is all about communication. Communication can even be shouting. When the shouting stops, the relationship is over. Up until that point, you're still communicating. So I've always kept those things in the back of my mind. And if you've ever had a client or a customer or a girlfriend or a man friend or a friend, and that communication period gets longer and longer and longer and longer, it eventually ends up, and the relationship, whether it be sales or whatever, is pretty much dormant then, and you have to go back in and resurrect it. So it's best keep the communication going, just in one shape, manner, or form. We're so blessed these days with texting and things like this. It's really the simplest thing we could possibly do now.
Let me
So
let me ask you a question, Malcolm, as we're co-hosting. So if a client's dormant has been dormant for a while, how do we get that client back? How do we get back to communicating with that client?
pick the phone up, or bless you. So, yeah, isn't it?
Oh, thank you.
The easiest thing is pick the phone up, or I would say send a nice card. I say, hey, I've been thinking of you. Let's do a virtual coffee, or I said, let's go retro and do an in person. And really just reach out again. And I coach a lot of people over the years that I've built sales teams. I've had my own business. I've hired my own salespeople. I've been the one carrying the bag and creating the rain. And I could consistently say is that if we put our needs, wherever they may be, secondary to the needs of the customer or the perceived needs of the customer, because if you I worked when I walked away from the corporate world for the third time in 2013, bearing in mind I've been moved across the Atlantic by three separate companies and walked away each time. I don't advise it as being the smartest thing, but if you've got standards, morals, and whatever, then it's up to the individual. And the the thing that I would say has kept me going through everything I've done is it's sort of fortitude. And I was fortunate enough to work with the world's best-selling sales how-to author, a guy called Jeffrey Gitomer. I'm trained to deliver some of his content and wherever. And he would always say is that in the world of sales, that as long as you believe in yourself, as long as you believe in your product and you believe in your company, and also you believe that the customer is going to be the one that's going to benefit the most when all of these things come together, so you'll be fine. If you go into it with just simple ulterior motives of just selling something, yeah, those are short-lived sort of experiences. So anyway, getting into the the whole thing of selling, um, I'll tell you this story. I had a sales manager in the UK at one time, and he told me this story about he used to work for some, I don't know, light bulb manufacturer or whatever, and he ended up in engineering and automation or wherever. And he took one of his customers out to play pool one night, and they had a burger and a couple of beers and whatever. And while he would, this guy was just lining his shot up, and he said, Keith, he said, if you don't mind, I've been wanting to ask you a question for a long time. And he said, sure. And he said, what traumatic thing happened in your life that you ended up in sales? And he said it was a choice. And this person that had come from a a management position in a company as a customer just couldn't imagine that. Now, I've always said to people, it's that you're probably the most fortunate person in the world because you have the skills to interact with anyone, you have mobility, and you get variety. And often, salespeople are the brain trust of a customer. And I would always ask a salesperson, why are the sales coming? Why are they being constantly repeated? Well, the product might be good. Well, no, it might not be that. It might be that you're providing additional value, application, insight, or wherever to somebody that can't get out of their office, can't get out of their factory, can't get out of their building. And you've got all this mobility. You're seeing things from a broader macro perspective. So these are some of the good things with sales, but
let me make a little point here, Malcolm, just to keep the interactions going. So if anyone has any questions, any insights, do jump in. Okay. So I find with my business, it's easier to find people who want to do marketing and communication than it is to find a salesperson. People don't want to sell, or people are not able to sell, or why is that? I mean, why do you think that I'm not able to find good salespeople?
I would say it's that pretty much the mindset of what that customer had, the perception, not understanding it. For many still, sales is a thing about being needy. It's that, it has it's almost like, the experience when you find something on the bottom of your shoe. People don't, it's distasteful
To sell.
to sell, to be perceived as a salesperson, because, I would say that, and if we get into the world of sales and, the definitions or wherever, it's about ideas, it's about products, it's about service, it's about selling yourself. And the first thing that's sold anytime is that salesperson. Now, often people don't have the confidence for it. And some of the stuff that I want to get onto and talk a little bit about is, you know, that confidence and how it ebbs and flows, and how really, building the resilience of self-belief in self, product, company, and the value that you bring together for that customer. Because that's, again, you don't want to lose sight of that. That's the most important thing. But with all the things that are going on, it's difficult to keep that positive attitude up, to keep that resilience up. As anyone here has experienced, having a client and losing them for some reason, or something goes bad and they get angry and they depart, or something happens in your business, you're floundering, and you really just, you're finding it a struggle to continue on with it. If this is speaking from the perspective of the self-employed person,
So
the sole.
when we're looking at a sales figure, a salesperson in a team, we had a salesperson here came along who was very, very good salesperson, but he didn't have the soft skills to actually integrate into the team. And so he was a maverick. He was selling, he was good at selling, but he was just not able to coordinate with what he was selling and what we could produce and what we could manage.
Yeah.
So we found ourselves like, overloaded. And so again, self-confidence, arrogance, superiority in that sales role, saying that's my job to sell. I'm going to sell as much as I can.
Yeah.
And then you guys can deal with whatever I sell.
Exactly. And anyone that's been in sales has come across, that yeah, personality that is sort of insular, the lone wolf, good at doing what they want to do, but they want to bend the rules and really don't want to comply or whatever. And the
So
you,
the question, Malcolm, would be how would you manage it? What, Amelia, let me finish this question, then we'll take yours. Is just how would you manage that kind of person in a team who comes in, is a good salesperson,
mm,
maybe self-confident, arrogant, pushy, super, all that, but is not able to fit into the team. That's an existing team. How would you deal
well,
with that?
well, we're fortunate in these times that we've got tools that can help us get a lot more insight into the individuals. Um, Now, you spoke on soft skills, okay? There are more jobs lost in the first 90 days because of the lack of soft skills, and I'm a big believer in that of if somebody comes to work for me, enhancing their capabilities, make them more marketable, um, and if they choose to leave, they're going to at least say something good to that effect. I've got an online learning management system with nearly 150 different courses set at building soft skills. So I use a when I engage with an individual, a client, or wherever like that, there's a couple of different tools that I use. First, we talk a lot. We want to understand about what their window on the world is. What makes them tick, where they want to go. You're probably familiar with the wheel of life. 5, 6, 7, 8 different things that are important in that person and in person's life, and sometimes necessary, and where they rank from a scale of 1 to 10. Now, what I do is I consistently in my coaching and when I'm helping in companies to find people and employ people, if that's what they want to do, or they bring me an individual or a manager wherever that's getting a bit off their game. Is it okay if I share the screen at all? Because am I allowed to do that?
Okay. I mean, Permelia's got a hand up as well. So,
Yeah,
do you
sorry.
want to take her question before I make you a host, and then
Absolutely, yes.
Permelia, go with your question or your.
All right, thank you. So I think what you were mentioning earlier, Gary, about sort of what we have grown up with or got to know what a salesperson was. Somewhat arrogant, somewhat pushy, somewhat very, know-it-all. And in the health and wellness area, we don't look at sales like that. We actually look at sales as a sacred exchange. So I have a service and I want to offer my service. And so yes, in exchange, it's a company, so I need to get paid. But we're doing it more, and probably this is what Malcolm means by soft skills, is we're doing it more from our heart rather than from our head, or thinking, what am I going to get out of it by engaging in whatever the selling or the connection with those people. So I'm really interested in Malcolm, you explaining a little bit more about what your how your soft skill training is like.
Okay. And this is a good point. And I must look, I've got a whole bunch of different things. I could talk for a half a day and still not covered everything. I built something conceptually called the toxic triangle. And this is about the toxicity that exists first off in a mental position, the thoughts that we have that can be fulfilling or detrimental to our performance, our bodily performance, and the things that we breathe in, we absorb, we eat, we're exposed to in the environment, they can do damage, they can bring us down. And then, finally, if you imagine that's two sides of a triangle, the base of the triangle could be relationships. So I believe in something called biopsychosocial. A 360 approach to an individual, an employee. Somebody is going to come to work. If you want them to perform higher than a 60% or wherever like that, really understand the person, is what their home life is like. What stresses have they got at home that they bring into work that is probably on their mind or taking them off the game? Stress will create bad habits, distractions or wherever, overeating, over drinking, gambling, or whatever, that kind of things, taking these things to extreme. But if you think somebody comes to work and they're not fully engaged, they're not feeling valued at work, they're not feeling invested with, they wonder why they're there, whatever their perception is. If they're under pressure, they're going to take those stresses home. That's probably going to manifest at home. Okay, they're going to have, unsettlement at home, probably not going to sleep well, not engaged with their partner or wherever, go to sleep, being stressed, that repeats during the evening or wherever, while they're asleep and their mind is rehashing everything that's gone on through the day. They're going to wake up unrested, go to work, they feel stressed again. It's a vicious cycle. It's the toxic triangle. It goes round and round and round. We
But
need
you know what,
relationships.
Malcolm, if I can just interact with you
Yeah.
here. I don't know, because you guys are you're calling from America, where I think there's a lot more need of coaching and soft skills and so on, compared to in Italy. And I don't know about Keith, where you are. There's less of this the request, less demand, let's say, for this. I work with companies, IT companies, where these people don't have this support. I mean, and they are working non-stop under pressure with deadlines and what you're saying, the toxic, what they do at work, what they take home. It's like, it's just being regurgitated the next day and the next day and the next day and so on. So I know what you're saying, and what they need is like some sort of mental support and help, but they don't get that. The training they get is the training for communication skills, maybe languages, other sorts of training for their IT skills, but
The
not the
vocation.
soft skills.
Yeah, and this is fundamentally, I've always been a bit of a romantic and altruist or wherever. Invest in the person because, I was afforded so many opportunities as I was growing up, and I'm just my disposition. And I'll show you where all this comes from now. Of if you invest in people and they feel valued, they perform a lot better. So instead of we've got. Um, I grew up in business school, three assets: men, money, and machines. And men, women, take care of the money and the machines. So if you invest wisely, you'll get more out of your business. But instead of treating employees just as a function, an employee, instead of that valued asset that is driving everything, and it's very, very 70s and 80s or wherever. We've seen a lot of shift now, but there's still a disconnect, and you're rightly so. In Europe, some of the things that we have here in the States or wherever are sort of discounted as being a bit foo-foo, a bit of California stuff or wherever. But there's what I'm just about to show you, and I'll skip through this because, and I invite anyone that's on this call to reach out to me, and we can talk a little bit more in depth about that. Pamelia, I have a passion in wellness, and some of the things that I do as another vein or wherever. I work with laboratories that are actually creating products and content and wherever. So and I value that the mental, the physical, and then the relationship parts can all come together because we thrive. We're an interconnected being, a biopsychosocial chemical entity that's firing on emotions all the time.
So
No,
Malcolm, we give the title of this talk, Sales Cures All.
yeah.
Sales Cures All. Tell us where did that come from? What were you thinking when you actually we came up with that title there?
People have said to me, "Yeah, well, what business you in?" And I said, "I'm in the fun business." They said, "Well, like what? A clown or whatever?" Yeah, kind of. If you've ever worked in an environment where numbers are right, business is booming, hey, you can have a bit of fun. As soon as the numbers go down and the pressure comes on, the economy changes or whatever, the fun gets sucked out of it. We thrive when we're engaged. We perform better when we're motivated. When we're constantly under pressure, we don't thrive. And all sorts of things can start to come into play then, and a lot of it's driven mentally.
But
So
even a little bit of pressure is needed, right? Because if there's no pressure, there's no drive, there's no inertia, and there's no energy. So how
yeah,
does
well, we thrive under stress. Okay, our body produces adrenaline, epinephrine, and cortisol, and whatever like that to help our muscles work and our joints and all of these things and whatever. But under a constant state of stress, those things can be damaging. There's good stress, eustress. That is that helps us in a short period of time. But when we get into the fight or flight stuff, all sorts of things can start to be damaged and break down in the body. So under that, there used to be in Europe, they talk about sick building syndrome. These things come home now as being very real. Very high degree of black mold in environments that drags a person's body down. That brings them down mentally. They have mental fog and wherever. Now, the whole thing about the if you want sales to be a highly performing function in an organization, people need to be motivated, they need to be managed, they need to be resourced well, but also they need to believe in things. I grew up around horses. My dad introduced me to horses. I had horses I was growing. My uncle had racehorses. And I used to say to him, like, you treat this Brahmin racehorse really well. And he said, well, yeah. He said, if I don't treat him well, he's not going to win. He's not going to be motivated. So I give him the best food I can. I keep him in the warmest place I can. I spend a lot of time with him and we exercise him. And he goes out and he wins. Well, if you imagine a salesperson, you motivate them, you give them the right tools, you give them prestige. They're not just a function which is, second class or whatever. You motivate them, they'll go out and they'll win because they believe in themselves, their product, their company, and the value they bring to the customer.
Let me ask you another question regarding rewards, incentives, Malcolm. You didn't mention that because you spoke about resources, motivation, belief in the product, but you didn't mention rewards and incentives. How does that come into sales?
Well, this is, every salesperson must be, paid as much as you can possibly pay him. Okay. And over the years, I would say the sales function has been a little bit ahead of where we're going now in employment. You're probably familiar with piecework from the industrial age. I imagine that the 40-hour work week is going to end up, people are going to be paid on productivity instead of being, as I call it, the unlimited coffee and free toilet paper syndrome. They show up, everything's given to them. They go there for so many hours a day and they leave. They get paid the same amount. If you put a salesperson on a basic and then you motivate him for sales and new business in particular and growth and constant growth, that he will do well, the company will thrive and flourish. But others need to be well sort of motivated as well. So give other employees the opportunity to say, look, what would you choose? Do you want this, 40-hour work week where your salary is capped, or do you want to get paid a little bit more by, if you're more creative, if you do more things, you are cross-skilled, you've got additional skills that you can, what's the word I'm looking for? Say cross-pollinate into other functions, and this was, I was fortunate enough in engineering to grow up. That was the teams, that was the way I was trained, so I can do a whole bunch of different things. And
so bringing in a salesperson, because everyone's looking for a salesperson, right?
okay.
Salespeople are really precious. I mean, any company, they try to get out of their depression, out of their their financial problems by getting a salesperson. That's what they do. So what are the criteria? Before you get a salesperson on board, what kind of steps? I mean, I can imagine the kind of steps that the company has to implement before bringing in this racehorse into your company. What should you be doing?
Personality first. Okay, the first thing that's sold is the person. Okay, if you'll give me the screen, I'll just rattle through.
Oh, okay. Well, 1 minute.
2 or 3 slides, and this is the cornerstone of how I work, because I had an epiphany that brought everything together a couple of years ago.
Here we are.
Okay, all right.
You're the host now, Malcolm. Yeah, but the question, Malcolm, was towards how should the company prepare for the arrival of this top player? Because if we're talking about a salesperson being the added advantage, let's say, my question is, how should a company prepare to bring this to host this person?
Well, I would say, to prepare, understand what you want the person to do. Understand who the person is going to team with. Salespeople have not only external customers, they have internal customers. There's an expectation is when you're selling something that is available for sale. It is of a high quality, it's refined, it's priced well, and it's going to do what it says it's going to do. There's nothing worse than being in a sales function and going out and competing in the marketplace, and we can get into whole sort of tactical approaches of how things work in the world of selling. But if you can sell something and then the company cannot deliver on it, you've got to manage that disappointment and expectation with the client. It makes the job equally hard, or even more so hard, because the one thing about being in sales is that you are the representative of the organization. Whatever the organization stands and falls for comes through you. So how you show up, is and how you behave and how you're good under pressure says an awful lot. And it comes down to the expectations as well, clear parameters of what is going to be delivered from that salesperson, clear targets, clear opportunity for earning well. Because at the end of the day, they're hired guns. Now, I believe.
Well, when you say internal sales and external sales, Malcolm, can you just explain that point?
Okay. All right. I have a thing. Okay. And I'm out and I meet with my client. And first I'd say the difference. Could you interpret the difference between sales and marketing in an organization?
Well, marketing, I would say. Does someone else want to take over? Pamelia, maybe you want to answer that question? The difference between marketing and sales, what would you be?
Well, marketing is, I think, looking out to find who your next customers are, knowing who your client is, knowing who you want to sell to or who you want to find to sell your product. And sales, in my mind, is doing that, is selling what you have been hired to sell in whatever that company might be.
Okay.
Okay, Keith, you got anything to add there? Keith Robinson?
Yeah, marketing would be the people maybe doing advertising or doing the publicizing or creating awareness, and the sales would be actually closing the deals.
Mm. Well, yep, and there's no wrong answer. Marketing is finding out what the market wants and communicating, at certain different levels. Sales is you've got the product, you're going to go out and you're going to find a purchaser for it. Okay, so marketing.
So there's a market research, right? Before the marketing, then
Yeah.
it's the so where is marketing and the communication, Malcolm? Where is the line?
In the middle. Okay, so marketing communications, marcoms, that's really the coming together of customer facing things, marketing, product development, sales. That's really melding the whole message together and putting it out to the market. That's what I would define as marketing communications. It's a supporting function to sales.
Okay.
Okay, so whether it's putting magazine stuff out or website stuff or podcasts or wherever like that in this day and age, and it used to be placing adverts and billboards and trade shows and things like that, and
So would you say that, because very often they have like two departments, you have the sales, marketing and communication, and then you have the sales department, you have separate departments, like, well, would you say that that's just superfluous to have two departments? Why don't you just have sales who know what they have and they know how to communicate what they want to sell? Wouldn't that be sufficient?
It could be, yes, yeah. The thing for and the lines are grayed over the years now. Marketing assumes a lot of the role for communication out into the to customers. Salespeople want good tools to work with. They want tools that are going to multiply their efforts and activities as opposed to being a weight on them. I used to be very, anti, CRM systems until I shifted into a role, away from sales and wherever, where I wasn't feeding the beast. I was using the data and interpreting, what was in the system. And any company would look at it, and there's often a distrust of what information salespeople put in there. They think they're pumping the sunshine pump or wherever, pushing up the numbers or wherever. So what most companies would look at doing is, okay, wherever this number is here, yeah, let's believe 40% of it or wherever, and let's base that on our budgets and activities and investments and things like that.
But when you do that kind of thing, when you can actually cook the books, let's say, you're actually putting the whole company out of sync, right?
You got it. Now this is why such simple things like 30, 60, 90 day sort of opportunity funnels, and the closer and closer you get, the more and more information you know about something. First it's on the radar, and then you refine it closer and closer and closer. Now, all of these things come into like this whole, think positive. And you think of this sales guy, he's got his job on the line. If he's not performing, he's going to be out there. So he wants a good set of tools. He wants the support of the company. He wants to be, rewarded. He wants to be motivated. And also then he wants to be able to have a bit of free reign and latitude, feel that he's not under the whip all the time for performance. Now, CRM tools are valuable things. I've used them in many sales instances where customers have said one thing, and we've gone to the almost like the video ref and run a few reports and say, look, this is the situation. And I remember one instance where we were negotiating contracts and wherever, and the buyer from the company said, look, our people know more about your products than your people do. Why should we pay these high prices? And I said, okay, I see you're aware how many calls that your engineering team has put into our company in the last 3 months for support. And he said, no. I showed him a report and I said it was 300.
Hmm.
And I said, can you say your people know more than our people about our products now? And they said, well, he said, obviously not. So we agreed, we hashed something. So it's the the value of data there. Now, coming back to your question about the individual, it's all about positivity. And this is something that I use as a cornerstone of my business, whether it's in sales, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in marketing, whether it's dealing with the individual that is constantly under stress. I'll say the voice in your head is either working for you or working against you. Okay? And this is all about, one of the more modern things now called mental fitness. Nothing to do with sort of mental health. We don't go there. This is taking your brain and your attitude to the gym. And I work with a company some years. I learned about them. Positive Intelligence is the program. Right in the middle of all the lockdowns and everything, things were quiet. I had an opportunity to look around. And what I found is myself being under stress, I was looking for some good tools. Now, you can see the slides okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I learned about is and I always say that it's not so much the message that comes along, it's the messenger. Now, this is coming back into sales. It's the salesperson that's sold first. Charismatic, confident, good-looking, attractive, articulate, and whatever. Confidence inspiring. Sales, I believe, is not so much about the assessed value of an exchange for a product and service for a monetary amount. It's about risk mitigation. If I make a decision here now, am I going to look bad? Am I going to be cheated? Am I going to be less than? Am I going to beat myself up? Am I going to get in trouble? And that always comes back to things like ego. And what I learned with this is, and if you've ever listened to anyone like Eckhart Tolle talks about the egoic mind, how this voice in your head is going all the time. What I learned about was this new message, and it came from the right messenger for me. And what I learned is it was a way to articulate a lot of things that have been done in research of different types of psychology and performance science and neuroscience and so on. And what it boiled down to was something which this guy Shazad Shamin describes in his book as saboteurs, and the impact of those voices, the negative voices, on performance, wellness, and relationships. Now, this is something that I learned is in use in 50, 60 countries and wherever. 1 million people almost have gone through this program. So I went off and I went through the program and I saw the value of it. And what I learned was that little voice in my head was a part of what was going on and responsible for me making decisions. And if you imagine, if anyone's ever had it, that you do something, you get that voice, oh, you silly person, you shouldn't have done that. You did it before, and oh, you're dumb or whatever. If we temper the message in the same words to a different tone, it can mean a different thing. So we've got two different communication channels going on at any one time up here. And so this started to expand onto this. So what I learned was that things like stress management, depression, relationships, executive coaching, all could be benefited from me understanding this. So what I learned about was, that's how. Imagine when you're familiar with character traits. We all have sort of different types of personalities and so on. If you go back into an organizational, you're hiring people for different roles. You're going to hire somebody for the accounts department. You're going to hire somebody for marketing, somebody for sales. Probably the people you'd hire for the accounts department are going to be very diligent, going to be very detail oriented, are going to be, trustworthy, and they're going to show up, and they're all going to be very similar. If you put a salesperson's personality into that, outgoing, gregarious, fun-loving, or whatever, you might get some clashing. Or you took somebody from accountancy and put them into sales to be customer facing. They maybe not wanted to do that. So in the organizational world, they're familiar with things like heat mapping,
I've heard of
where
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you design a job and you say, right, this is the criteria that I want in my job, and this is the type of people that we have the experience of be able to deliver this. And so that starts to build up your profile, and then that is going to the next thing is you're going to put the adverts out. Anybody fits this, they send their CVs in. Algorithms sift them out nowadays and look for buzzwords, and you're left with a pool of people. Now, that's one half of the puzzle. I mentioned about, soft skills,
Yeah.
are valued. More people lose jobs in the first 90 days because they don't fit in with the team. They don't fit in with the culture, the way we do things around here. So
So
very,
let me ask you a question for me, Malcolm. As a lot of people who come on here are sole entrepreneurs or coaches, and they're probably doing their marketing, their communication, their sales, they're doing everything by themselves.
yeah.
So the question is, I mean, we talk about the saboteurs, we talk about judging, we talk about avoiders, and so on. So how does that sort of fit in with the way we are? How can we be good salespeople, good marketers, good communicators, and so on, as a solopreneur, sole entrepreneur?
Okay. All right. Understand who we are first and foremost. If you imagine now we're all the same, and everything I'm going to just to quickly skip through here is absolute strengths. This is what allows us to come through young childhood and adolescence and wherever and thrive. We're talking about emotional and often physical survival skills that we're going to learn here. Things that benefit us early in life but don't switch off later in life. Now, if you imagine you've got a deck of cards, I draw this analogy, and there's 11 cards, or 10, say. Okay, 10, imagine that. We've got the judge, he's one card. He's that big superior voice in the head. When anything happens in a situation or an interaction with a person or something we do ourselves, that voice kicks off and says, hey, you could do better. This is not right, or whatever. And you say, just hold that thought a minute. Wherever you've done, let me go and find a buddy of mine who's a real specialist in this area. So in that sort of 10 cards we've got the judge as one, and the judge is good, Gary. Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
That's the name. And then, so we've got the other 9 characters. We've got an avoider, we've got a controller, we've got a hyperachiever, we've got a hyper-rational tendencies, hypervigilance, we've got pleasing, we've got restlessness, and, sorry, that's a duplication, stickler, and a victim, and so on. Now, each one of these, as you talk about the say that salesperson is not wanting to fit in, just wants to do his own thing. Okay, well, what's each one of these characters, these saboteurs, has got a sort of a profile of behavior. So if we looked at the hyperachiever, and this is a good thing, this is a strength, but it's overused. Impact on performance. Team members perceive that you use them to get your own desired achievement, and it's too much about you. Could that maybe a lone wolf sales guy? He's got a very strong hyperachiever. But on the other side of it, he's the one that can go out and knock over the competition and get the order for you.
Yeah.
You might avoid setting greater goals. So this is coming from the hyperachiever's perspective. You might avoid setting greater goals because not hitting them would be devastating to that individual. If you imagine a hyperachiever kind of personality, is somebody that's going to go and climb Everest and get right to the top. They put 6 months of training into it, and it's all endurance stuff. They're going to get to the top. Wow, that looks good. Right, on to the next one. They don't.
But isn't that the sales? I mean, the guy, we used to have a guy here, like that was his focus. His focus was on selling. I will sell as much as I can. And in the end, we had problems with him. We had to get rid of him because he didn't have the soft skills to integrate into the team. That was the problem. The team went against him. And so, though he was good at his job, I had to make a decision to have a high achiever selling as much as possible and having an unhappy team around me who were not able to liaise with him. So we were not able to communicate. And so the poor guy didn't understand why I had to let him go because he said he was doing his job. But I just said, listen, we know here we work as a team and you know, gave him a couple of chances, but it just didn't, he didn't see it. He didn't understand the need to play as a team member. So listen, now, Malcolm, we're coming to the end now. I mean, you know, we've got another 5 minutes, like 4 or 5 minutes. I know you could continue for another hours. I'm sure you could.
Yeah, I'm going to offer something up, Gary. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a little website, informins.com. Okay, or you can, you know, make things easy. Use the, you know, scan the QR code. It'll bring a little form up. You fill it in, and it'll send some information. This is a very straightforward process that I go through with anyone, and this is the tip of what this whole sort of program is about. It's very impactful. It's used in pretty much all of the top 100 companies in the country, up to executive level and teams or wherever. It's very well validated. Now, it starts off with understanding a little bit about yourself. And when all of these saboteurs, we typically look at the top 3. Mine are hypervigilant. Hyper-rational means I will explain things to the nth degree because I want to make sure you understand them. Why? Because I have a pleasing disposition. I would hate to share something with you and you went off and used it and it wasn't quite right. And I have a restless personality, one element of me. I like shiny things. I like new technologies. I'm a geek. I love building stuff. I've got maybe 6, 7, 8 different websites I'll build, all doing different things and wherever. I'll spend hundreds and hundreds of hours learning things.
Malcolm, we got a question from Sulara here.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could put your details into the chat, and so how we can contact you should we want to go further with this this program of yours. Could you put that in the chat?
Absolutely. So
your details. As we're coming to the end, I would sort of even the other speakers or the other participants, if you want to put your details in the chat, an email or something that where we can contact you, and that way we can all stay in contact, we can network, we can exchange services and so on. So take the last 5 minutes to actually just put everything in the chat.
Yeah, and thanks for what's the word? Not monitoring, coordinating this or whatever. And I can get pretty deep into this.
I know you can.
Insightful. Now, but one thing that I wanted to come to, you'd mentioned something last week about sort of how to get people sort of relaxed on the same frequency or wherever. What is behind this is the concept of neuroplasty. And if you imagine like Tony Robbins, somebody's in one of his sessions and he's talking this, and then he'll drop the F-bomb. That person's like, whoa, stunned. What we're doing now is once we understand that the saboteurs and the judge are in play, we shift the focus in a way. And we use tactile and different types of exercises. And one thing that I'll reach out, from what you said last week, I want you to be aware of these tactile types of exercises because they help shift focus and allow us to get back into more of a relaxed state instead of getting out of the anxiety And it's great for teams.
I agree with you. I mean, working as working with peace, calm, brings so much more benefit. I mean, for years, I was working on just tension. It was that drive, more customers, more money, more turnover. And then when I decided to change direction and actually focus on myself and go inwards, things really changed. So listen, Malcolm, can you sort of take away the co-host at the screen, and then we can say goodbye to everyone?
We can do that. Let me stop the share.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for everything there.
Yeah,
so we're coming to the end. I mean, let's see what everyone's taking away. Maybe a word or something. Keith has been very quiet today for a change. Keith,
What do you mean today?
this time.
Well, a lot of what Malcolm says makes total sense to me. I'm in sales all my life. In the wholesale distribution business, I was on the road for sales, but I always felt it was very important to build up excellent relationships with my customers. And I always felt that we had an added extra to the customers, because even on a Friday evening, if they rang and they were short of something, we'd make sure we would get it to them, and you'd have that service there all the time. I spent 10 years in financial services, same thing. I built fabulous relationships with those people, and I never set up a policy for somebody that I wouldn't have done for myself. In other words, if I was happy that it was done for me that way, that's the way I would do it for them. And I think that always stands to you if you're always working in honesty and integrity, and you always have the best interests of whoever you're dealing with, and I do the exact same thing in health and wellness. And I think it stands to anyone that operates that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's always looking at it as if you were the customer. How would you want to be treated? I agree with you. Please. Pamelia, what's your word, sentence? What are you taking away from this hour together?
Well, I love the way, Malcolm, I love the way you framed how you teach people to look at who they are first, and then for companies to be able to identify how that person's going to fit in with their company, whether they are or whether they aren't. I was very fortunate. I live in Canada, and I was very fortunate that when I worked for the federal government here, we had a lot of training very similar about that. We did Myers-Briggs, we did lots of personality testing. I was in kind of the counseling area from our regional office, so we had to understand the people that we were actually training and teaching, which were in the local offices. So I really understand a lot of what you were talking about today and how important that is. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And there are so many good tools available, things like, predictive index and wherever they're out at the moment. I have never come across something as powerful as positive intelligence to help the individual and help teams, take the stress out of things and get onto we have two frequencies. We've got a data channel and we've got the sage channel. I didn't cover the sage part of it.
We didn't have enough time. We'll have to do that next.
Yeah, well, it's like, but Pamelia, I will reach out to you. You're up in Canada. I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you as well. I don't know whether you've got a phone number on your website, but I'll
actually, I put in the chat the ways to get a hold of me, and I do have a calendar link. So
okay,
yeah.
We'll do that.
Even Solaris put her contact there. I don't know if Steve has, but I think you've got Steve's contact. Anyway, Stephen Busher, he's gone now. He's just jumped off, I think. But he can be found on LinkedIn. You can find him there. So we're coming to the end. Thank you very much for your time and being here. Thank you, Malcolm, for your insights. Next week, we've got Pamelia coming on, and we're going to be talking about holistic health modalities. I don't really want to give too much away, but I'm sure Pamelia will come along and enlighten us for that next Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. CET. This record is going to be on the YouTube channel if you want to take a look at it, and I'll send you a copy of this, Malcolm, so you can use this for your promotion and so on.
Thank you. And
Okay. Sulara's got a question as we get off. Sulara, do you want to?
Yes, really quickly, just want to say thank you so much for the information shared today. I really was drawn to the communication piece of what you mentioned, Malcolm, about when the communication stops, the relationship ends. That's really important for me to have heard that, because I want to go a little bit further with you, maybe on a different call, about when is communication too much? So, with regards to what I do with energy healing and so forth. And I'm also located in Metro Atlanta, so I found that to be
okay.
awesome that you are here. So I would really like to connect with you and discuss things further.
Yeah, I'll put my my website on here as well. I didn't put it in. Yeah, it's
There you are. This is a great moment. We're
Yeah.
connected to the place. We're from Ireland. Sunara, where are you?
I am in Fayetteville, South Atlanta, so Fayetteville, Fairburn. Yeah.
Okay, not far
I'm
from.
north. I'm near Cumming.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome.
But
And Fernanda, where are you?
I'm in on the west coast of Canada on Vancouver Island.
Vancouver Island.
very
Okay.
nice.
And
very
I'm in
good.
the north of Italy, Verona.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
one thing that jumps to mind, Gary, is I can't remember how many times over this last 20 years I've been on a call where more than 80% of the people understand Coronation Street.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Is that still going?
Oh yeah,
Seriously? Wow.
still going. Yeah.
That's good for ages. So listen, I'm going to jump off. Thank you very much again. And hopefully I'll see you guys next week or on one of the other calls. Take care.
Absolutely.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers all. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.